Close your eyes and let the present moment begin to dissolve, like mist lifting off a winding river in the heart of Italy. We are traveling back, far back, to a time where the world moved at the pace of a heartbeat, and the air was filled with the scent of wild rosemary and drying plaster. Imagine yourself standing on a stone balcony in the hills of Vinci. The year is 1460, and the sun is just beginning to peek over the jagged purple horizon of the Apennine Mountains. To your left, a young boy with golden red hair and curious, bright eyes sits perfectly still. This is Leonardo. He is not a legend yet. He is simply a child watching a dragonfly. Notice how he doesn't just look at the insect. He observes the way its translucent wings catch the morning light, shimmering like oil on water. He watches the rhythmic beat, up and down, a pulse so steady it feels like a lullaby. The air here is cool and crisp. You can feel the light breeze brushing against your skin, carrying the distant chime of a church bell from the valley below. In this world, there is no rush. Every shadow has a story, and every leaf is a miracle of geometry. Leonardo reaches for a piece of charcoal, his fingers moving slowly and deliberately. He isn't trying to change the world. He is just trying to understand the curve of a feather. As he draws, the sound of the charcoal scratching against the rough paper is rhythmic and grounding. Scratch, scratch. A steady, peaceful song of creation that lulls the mind into a state of quiet wonder. Imagine now that the rustic, herbal scents of the Tuscan hills are beginning to fade, replaced by a new symphony of smells. As we travel with the young Leonardo toward the city of Florence, the air becomes thicker, sweeter, and more complex. You can smell the faint, distant aroma of roasting chestnuts, the sharp tang of river water from the Arno, and the deep, rich scent of tanned leather from the artisan stalls. As you enter the city gates, the sound of your footsteps changes. No longer are you treading on soft earth and grass. Now, your feet meet the solid, rhythmic click of cobblestones. The city of Florence is a living, breathing creature, but in this quiet sleep journey, the noise is muted, like a memory. The shouting of merchants and the clatter of carts are softened into a gentle hum, a background white noise that wraps around you like a heavy velvet cloak. We are walking toward the heart of the city, toward a place where the air itself seems to vibrate with the spirit of creation. We arrive at the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio. This is not just a room. It is a sanctuary of light and shadow. Imagine stepping through a heavy oak door into a space that feels like a cathedral of the senses. The first thing you notice is the light. It is late afternoon, and long, amber fingers of sunlight are stretching through high, arched windows. These rays of light are filled with tiny, dancing motes of dust, swirling slowly in the air like microscopic galaxies. In this workshop, the air is a perfume of the Renaissance. There is the earthy, grounding smell of wet clay being shaped into statues. There is the sharp, clean scent of turpentine and the heavy, golden aroma of linseed oil. You can hear the soft, rhythmic clink, clink, clink of a small hammer hitting a chisel as a sculptor works on a block of white Carrara marble. The sound is steady, like a slow clock, marking the passage of time in a world that is never in a hurry. Leonardo, now a teenager, moves through this space with the grace of a cat. He is a garzone, a studio boy, but his mind is already light years ahead. Watch as he approaches a large wooden table covered in bowls of powdered pigments. There are jars of deep lapis lazuli blue, fiery cinnabar red, and earth-toned ochres. His task is simple yet meditative. He must grind the pigments. Imagine the sound, the heavy stone pestle moving in slow, circular motions against the mortar. Grind, rotate, breathe. The sound is hypnotic. It is a low, rolling rumble that vibrates through the table and into your own hands. As the powder becomes finer and finer, the colors become more vivid. Leonardo watches the way the light hits the piles of blue dust, noticing how the shadows in the powder are darker and cooler than the surface. He takes a breath, and so do you. A deep, slow breath of air that smells of history and calm. In the corner of the workshop, a large fire is burning in a stone hearth. It is used for melting wax and heating glues, but for us, it is a source of warmth and a visual lullaby. The flames are low and orange, flickering with a lazy, rhythmic motion. You can hear the occasional soft pop of the wood, a gentle reminder of the world's quiet energy. Leonardo sits near the fire, opening one of his first notebooks. The paper is thick and creamy, made of pressed cotton and linen. He picks up a silver point, a delicate stylus tipped with silver. As he draws on the specially prepared paper, the mark it leaves is faint and ethereal, like a ghost of a line. There is no room for error with silver point. Every stroke must be deliberate. He draws the folds of a piece of linen draped over a stool. He isn't interested in the stool itself, but in the way the fabric falls, the way the shadows hide in the deep valleys of the cloth, and how the light kisses the ridges. Watch his hand move. It is slow, fluid. It follows the rhythm of his breathing. Up and down, around the curve, and back. As you watch him, you feel a sense of heavy relaxation spreading through your own limbs. The meticulous nature of his work is contagious. You begin to feel the weight of the day lifting, replaced by the simple, singular focus on the curve of a line. In this workshop, Leonardo is surrounded by other great minds, but they are all quiet now, lost in their own crafts. To his left, a young Sandro Botticelli is sketching the grace of a goddess. To his right, Perugino is mixing a wash for a sky. They do not speak. The only language here is the language of the brush hitting the canvas. A soft, wet shushu sound, and the steady breathing of focused men. The workshop is a cocoon. Outside, the city of Florence is settling into the evening. The great Duomo, with its massive red dome, towers over the streets, casting a long, protective shadow over the rooftops. The bells of the campanile begin to ring for the evening prayer. They are not loud or jarring. They are deep, resonant tones that vibrate in the chest. Bong, bong, bong. The sound travels through the air, over the Arno River, and into the hills, signaling that the time for labor is ending and the time for rest is beginning. Leonardo sets down his silver point. His hands are slightly stained with the gray of the silver and the blue of the lapis, but he doesn't mind. He looks at his work, then out at the darkening sky. The amber light has turned to a deep, dusty violet. The shadows in the workshop are growing longer, merging together into a soft, protective darkness. The master, Verrocchio, walks over and places a hand on Leonardo's shoulder. There is a deep, silent respect between them. Verrocchio sees the angel Leonardo has been painting on the corner of a large commission, the baptism of Christ. The angel's hair looks like spun gold. Its skin looks like it would be warm to the touch. It is more real than the world around it. Verrocchio knows in this quiet moment that the student has become the master. But there is no jealousy, only a shared sense of peace. The candles are being lit now. One by one, small points of light flicker into existence, reflecting in the jars of oil and the polished bronze statues. The smell of beeswax fills the room, sweet, warm, and comforting. The yellow light of the candles makes the workshop feel smaller, more intimate. It is a world of golden circles surrounded by soft, velvet blackness. Leonardo prepares his bed in a small loft above the studio. The wood of the ladder is smooth under his hands, worn down by years of use. As he climbs, the air gets warmer, holding the heat of the day's fire. His bed is simple, a straw mattress covered in heavy linen sheets that smell of sun and lavender. As he lies down, he can still hear the faint sounds of the city below. A distant dog bark, the splash of a bucket in a well, the rhythmic footsteps of a night watchman. But these sounds are far away. Inside the workshop, the candles are being blown out. Puff, puff. The scent of lingering wood smoke and extinguished wax hangs in the air. He closes his eyes, and in his mind, he still sees the patterns of the dragonfly wings from the morning and the folds of the cloth from the afternoon. The world is a giant, beautiful machine, and he is a part of it. He feels the weight of his body sinking into the mattress. His breath slows down, matching the rhythm of the Arno River flowing just a few streets away. The water flows over the stones, steady, eternal, carrying away the thoughts of the day. The transition from the golden heat of Florence to the cool, mist-veiled plains of Lombardy is like moving from a vivid dream into a calm, silvery reality. Imagine the year is now 1482. We are traveling north with Leonardo. The air changes. It becomes damp and fresh, carrying the scent of dew-heavy grass and the crisp, clean breath of the nearby Alps. As you follow the winding road toward Milan, the horizon is no longer jagged with Tuscan hills, but is instead a soft, endless stretch of green, blurred at the edges by a low-hanging fog that clings to the earth like a soft wool blanket. Leonardo is older now, his beard beginning to grow, his presence more settled and serene. He is traveling not as a mere painter, but as an engineer of the imagination. In his bags, he carries lutes made of silver in the shape of horse skulls and notebooks filled with drawings of machines that can fly, swim, and breathe underwater. As we enter the city of Milan, the atmosphere is different from Florence. It is a city of iron and stone, of heavy mists and grand ambitions. The Duke, Ludovico Sforza, known as the Moor, awaits him in a castle of red brick and towering spires. Imagine stepping into the Corte Vecchia, the workshop granted to Leonardo within the ducal palace. It is a space of immense proportions. The ceilings are so high they are lost in shadow, and the floor is made of cold, smooth stone that echoes with the slow, deliberate pace of your footsteps. Here, the air smells of cold iron, damp earth, and the faint, sweet scent of incense drifting from the nearby cathedral. This workshop is a laboratory of the soul. In the center of the room stands a mountain of clay, the beginning of the great horse, a monument so large it seems to challenge the very sky. To listen to the silence of this workshop is to hear the heartbeat of genius. You can hear the rhythmic thwack, thwack, thwack of Leonardo's assistants kneading the massive piles of clay. The sound is wet and heavy, a grounding thud that repeats with the steady pace of a metronome. Leonardo himself stands before the clay, his hands covered in the gray-brown earth. He moves around the sculpture with a slow, circular grace, his eyes tracing the imaginary muscles of a horse that does not yet exist. He stops. He closes his eyes. He listens to the wind whistling through the high rafters of the palace. In this moment, there is no pressure to finish. There is only the process. He reaches out and smooths a section of the clay with his thumb. The sensation is cool and slick. He is thinking about the anatomy of the beast, how the tendons tension like harp strings and how the lungs expand with air. As you watch him, you feel your own breathing sync with his. Deep, slow, and effortless. The scale of the work is vast, but the energy in the room is quiet and focused. In the evenings, when the light turns to a pale, misty blue, Leonardo moves away from the clay and toward his desk. The desk is a landscape of curiosities. There are dried poppy heads, the skeletal wings of a bat, and glass jars filled with murky water and aquatic plants. He lights a single, thick tallow candle. The flame is steady and warm, casting a long, flickering shadow across the room. He opens a fresh notebook. The sound of the pages turning is a soft, dry whisper, like the rustle of autumn leaves. He begins to write in his famous mirror script, moving from right to left across the page. The quill scratches against the paper. A delicate, rhythmic scritch, scritch, scritch. That sounds like a tiny insect walking over parchment. He is designing a system of locks for the city's canals. He imagines the water rising and falling, a slow and powerful movement of fluid. He draws the eddies and the swirls, his pen following the path of the water until the drawing itself looks like it is flowing. The humidity of Milan begins to settle into the room, making everything feel heavy and soft. You can feel the weight of your own limbs as you sit in the corner of this great hall. The shadows are deep and protective. Leonardo pauses his writing to look at a bowl of water on his table. He drops a small stone into it and watches the ripples move outward in perfect, concentric circles. He watches until the water is perfectly still again, a mirror reflecting the candlelight. The city outside is falling into a deep, damp slumber. The heavy iron gates of the Sforza castle are locked with a resonant, metallic clack that signals safety and seclusion. The guards walk the ramparts, their footsteps muffled by the thick fog. From the distance, the sound of a lute drifts through the air, Leonardo's own instrument. He picks it up and begins to play a slow, improvised melody. The strings are made of gut and silver, and the notes are round and golden. They hang in the cool air, vibrating softly before fading into the silence. The music is like a bridge between the physical world and the world of dreams. It tells of the flight of birds and the motion of the planets. As the melody wanders through the vast, dark workshop, it brushes past the great clay horse, the piles of iron gears, and the stacks of secret notebooks. Leonardo leans back in his chair, his head resting against the high wooden back. He watches the candle burn down, the wax dripping in slow, rhythmic beads that harden into white tears. He thinks of the mountains to the north, the white peaks of the Alps that he can see on clear days. He thinks of the silent, frozen blue of the glaciers and the way the clouds wrap around the summits. The thought is cooling and peaceful. He feels a sense of immense space, a quietness that stretches for miles in every direction. In this workshop, time has no meaning. The great horse may take years, the canals may take a lifetime, but here in the candlelight, everything is complete. The air is still. The only sound is the slow, dying hiss of the candle wick as it nears the end of its life. Leonardo stands and walks toward the window. He looks out into the Milanese night. The fog has swallowed the streets, leaving only the faint, blurry glow of distant lanterns. It is a world made of charcoal and silk. He prepares for rest, moving through the shadows with the ease of a man who is at home in the dark. He washes his hands in a basin of cool water, the splashes sounding like a gentle fountain. He lies down on his bed, the linens cool against his skin, smelling of the fresh Lombardy air. He lets his mind drift back to the ripples in the bowl of water, smaller and smaller, until the surface is flat and silver and silent. He is at peace with the machines of the world and the mysteries of the stars. The great city of Milan breathes with him, a slow, rhythmic rise and fall that carries him deeper into the velvet embrace of the night. We leave the humid, iron-scented air of Milan behind and step into the soft, amber glow of the Roman years, and eventually, the lush green heart of France. Imagine the year is 1516. Leonardo is now 64, an age that feels like a long, quiet evening after a brilliant, sun-drenched day. His hair and beard have turned into a silver waterfall, and his hands, though still steady, move with the measured deliberation of a man who knows that every second of life is a precious drop of oil in a lamp. In his luggage, carefully wrapped in soft silks and padded with wool, is a small panel of poplar wood. This is the Mona Lisa. As you imagine the carriage jolting slowly over the rocky passes of the Alps, think of this painting resting in the darkness of its crate. It has been with him for nearly 15 years. It is no longer just a commission for a silk merchant's wife. It has become Leonardo's companion, a mirror of his own soul. He has carried it through the wars of Milan, the politics of Rome, and now over the frozen peaks into the kingdom of France. Close your eyes and feel the change in the air as we descend into the Loire Valley. The air is no longer sharp with mountain frost. It is heavy with the scent of blooming lilies, damp river stones, and the sweet, earthy breath of the French countryside. We arrive at the Château du Clos-Luce in Amboise. This is a house of pink brick and white tufa stone, nestled in a garden where the grass is always a deep, cool emerald. King Francis I, a young man who looks upon Leonardo not as a servant, but as a father, has given him this sanctuary. Here, Leonardo. The king says in a voice that is soft and respectful, "You shall be free to dream, to think, and to breathe." Imagine Leonardo's new studio at Clos-Luce. It is smaller than the grand halls of Milan, more intimate and warm. The walls are lined with oak, and a large fireplace crackles quietly in the corner, the scent of burning applewood filling the room. He places the Mona Lisa on an easel near the window. The light here in the Loire is famous. It is a white light, filtered through the river mists, making everything appear soft and ethereal. He picks up a brush, but he does not load it with thick color. Instead, he prepares a glaze. A mixture of oil so thin it is almost transparent, with only a ghost of pigment. This is the secret of sfumato, the smoke-like blurring of edges. Watch his hand move. He is not painting a line, he is painting a shadow. He applies a layer of glaze over the corner of her mouth, so thin it takes days to dry. Then another, and another. The sound of the brush is a faint, rhythmic hiss, hiss, hiss against the wood. It is the sound of patience. It is the sound of a man who understands that a smile is not a fixed thing, but a movement caught between two breaths. As he works, the boundaries between the lady on the wood and the landscape behind her begin to dissolve. The winding rivers in the background seem to flow into the silk of her sleeves. The rocky crags of the mountains match the structure of her bones. He is painting the unity of the world. In the afternoons, Leonardo walks through the gardens of Clos-Luce. He watches the Amas stream as it flows beneath a small stone bridge. He carries a notebook, but now he spends more time simply looking. He watches the way water eddies around a fallen branch, creating tiny, perfect spirals. He watches the way the wind moves through the willow trees, a rhythmic waving that looks like the hair of the woman in his painting. He feels the sun on his face, a gentle, fading warmth. He is a premier painter, engineer, and architect to the king. But in these final years, he is most of all a philosopher of the natural world. He designs a mechanical lion that can walk and open its chest to reveal lilies, but his heart is in the quiet observations of the garden. As the sun begins to set over the Loire, the sky turns a dusty rose. Leonardo returns to his room. He sits in a high-backed chair, his right hand resting in the folds of his sleeve. It has grown stiff now, a paralysis of the spirit, as he calls it. But his mind remains a vast, unclouded sky. He looks at his notebooks, thousands of pages of birds, machines, hearts, and stars. He knows he cannot finish them all, and for the first time in his life he is at peace with that. He hears the distant sound of the king's hunting horns from the great Château d'Amboise, but here at Clos-Luce, the only sound is the rhythmic ticking of a water clock and the soft breathing of his faithful pupil, Francesco Melzi, who sits nearby. The room is filled with the golden light of the blue hour, that magical time when the world feels like it is suspended in amber. Leonardo leans his head back. He thinks of the hills of Vinci, the dragonflies, the grind of the pigments in Florence, and the great horse of Milan. All these moments are like ripples in a pond, moving outward, overlapping, and finally becoming still. He feels a profound sense of weightlessness. The mystery of the smile on the easel is no longer a puzzle to be solved, but a truth to be felt. The candles are lit, their small flames standing straight and still in the quiet air. The scent of beeswax and old parchment is a comforting, familiar shroud. He closes his eyes, letting the rhythm of the river outside guide him into a sleep as deep and eternal as the mountains in his paintings. The world of Leonardo is quiet now. The ink is dry, the brush is still, and the smile remains, watching over the silence of the night. The scene shifts now, moving from the soft, green riverbanks of France to the rugged, mist-heavy frontiers of the Roman Empire. The year is 170 AD. We are far from the marble palaces of Rome. We find ourselves in a military outpost on the edge of the Danube River, in the land of the Marcomanni. The air here is different. It is cold, sharp, and smells of wood smoke, wet leather, and the ancient, earthy scent of the deep German forests. Imagine you are standing inside the imperial tent of Marcus Aurelius. Outside, the world is vast and unforgiving. You can hear the rhythmic, distant sound of the Danube flowing over smooth stones, a relentless, cold rush of water that never stops. But inside the tent, there is a profound, concentrated stillness. The walls of the tent are made of heavy, dark wool, which muffles the sounds of the camp. The clink of a sentry's armor, the occasional snort of a horse in the stables, and the low murmur of the night watch. These sounds are not distractions. They are the rhythmic background of a world at work, softened by the thick fabric of the night. Marcus Aurelius sits at a small wooden folding desk. He is a man who carries the weight of the known world on his shoulders. Yet here, in the amber glow of a single oil lamp, he looks small and infinitely human. The lamp is made of bronze, its flame small and steady, casting a warm light over a stack of papyrus scrolls. Notice the smell of the lamp, the slight, nutty aroma of olive oil burning slowly, a scent that has meant home and safety to Romans for 1,000 years. The emperor is not writing a decree or a war plan. He is writing to himself. He picks up a reed pen, dipping it into a small pot of dark gall ink. The sound of the pen moving across the papyrus is a dry, rhythmic whisper. SHHH, like the sound of wind moving through tall grass. He writes in Greek, the language of his soul and his teachers. He tells himself to be like a rocky headland, against which the waves continually break, but which stands firm and eventually stills the waters around it. Imagine the feeling of the silence in this room. It is a heavy, protective silence. Marcus pauses, resting his hand on the desk. He looks at the flame of the lamp. He is thinking about the transience of all things, how empires rise and fall like the seasons, and how even the most powerful man is but a temporary spark in the darkness of time. As you watch him reflect, you feel a sense of perspective. The worries of your own day begin to shrink, becoming as small as the motes of dust dancing in the lamplight. He stands up slowly, his joints stiff from the cold of the northern night. He walks to the opening of the tent and pulls back the heavy flap. The air that rushes in is bracing and clean, smelling of pine needles and frost. Above, the sky is a vast, velvet dome of deepest indigo, scattered with stars that look like spilled diamonds. Marcus looks up at the stars, not as a ruler, but as a student of the universe. He reminds himself that he is part of a great rational whole, a cosmic city where everything has its place and its time. The constellations move with a slow, majestic rhythm that has not changed since the dawn of time. Looking at them, you feel a deep, physical sense of calm. The scale of the universe is so vast that everything else, the wars, the politics, the noise of the day, simply fades away. There is only the breath of the wind and the cold, silver light of the stars. Marcus returns to his bed, a simple military cot covered in thick furs. He does not sleep on silk and gold. He chooses the life of a soldier-philosopher. As he lies down, the furs are heavy and warm against him. He listens to the rhythmic breathing of the camp, thousands of men sleeping in their tents, unified by the silence of the forest. The Danube continues its song. Rush, swirl, flow. A liquid lullaby that has played for 1,000,000 years and will play for 1,000,000 more. He closes his eyes and repeats a thought to himself, one he has written many times. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. He chooses to dye his soul in the colors of the night, the deep blues of the sky, the warm gold of the lamp, and the silver of the stars. He lets go of the emperor, lets go of the general, and becomes simply a man, a part of the nature he loves so much. The lamp flickers one last time before the oil runs dry. The glow fades slowly, leaving the tent in a soft, gray twilight. The smell of the extinguished wick lingers, a familiar, comforting scent of an ending. Outside, the mist begins to rise from the river, wrapping the camp in a soft, white shroud that deadens all sound. The world is perfectly still. The only thing that remains is the slow, steady rise and fall of your own breath, matching the ancient rhythm of the river and the silent watch of the stars. The cold mists of the Danube now begin to dissolve, replaced by the golden, honeyed light of the Mediterranean sun. We follow Marcus Aurelius as he returns, for a brief time, to the heart of the Roman Empire. The year is 176 AD. Imagine the transition from the rugged, gray frontier to the warm, white marble of the Eternal City. As the imperial carriage moves along the Via Appia, the sound of the wheels on the large basalt stones is a deep, rhythmic rumble, thrum-thrum, thrum-thrum, a grounding vibration that resonates through the body and mind. We arrive at the emperor's private gardens on the Celian Hill. Here, the air is a different kind of silence. It is not the silence of a military camp, but the living, breathing quiet of a sanctuary. The scent of Rome in the late afternoon is a tapestry of fragrances. The sweetness of blooming jasmine, the resinous perfume of towering stone pines, and the cool, damp smell of ancient stone fountains. Imagine walking beside Marcus through a long, shaded colonnade. The floor is a mosaic of cool tiles, smooth beneath the feet. To your left, a row of white marble statues of old philosophers. Socrates, Zeno, Epictetus, stands in the shadows. They look on with frozen, peaceful expressions, guardians of the wisdom that Marcus carries in his heart. The sun, dipping low in the sky, casts long, rhythmic shadows of the pillars across the path, creating a pattern of light and dark that moves past you like a slow-motion film. The emperor stops at a small, circular pond. The water is perfectly still, acting as a dark green mirror for the surrounding cypress trees. He watches a single leaf fall from a branch. It doesn't struggle. It doesn't resist the wind. It simply lets go and drifts in a slow, spiraling dance until it touches the surface of the water with a tiny, silent ripple. Marcus observes the ripples as they travel outward, wider and wider, until they disappear against the mossy edge of the stone. This, he thinks, is the nature of a human life, a brief ripple on the surface of eternity. The sound of the garden is a symphony of peace. You can hear the rhythmic drip, drop, drip of a nearby fountain, where water spills from a marble lion's mouth into a basin. The sound is steady and predictable, a liquid clock that measures the passing of a beautiful, unimportant hour. In the distance, the low cooing of doves provides a soft, vibrating background noise, a sound so consistent it becomes a part of the silence itself. Marcus sits on a stone bench that has been warmed by the sun all day. He feels the heat of the stone through his linen robes, a comforting, heavy warmth that anchors him to the earth. He is no longer the commander of legions. He is a man sitting in a garden, breathing the same air as the trees and the birds. He closes his eyes and practices what he calls his inner citadel. He imagines his mind as a fortress of peace, not a place to hide, but a place where the storms of the world cannot reach. He listens to the sounds of Rome, but they are far away. The shouting of the forum, the clatter of the chariots, the roar of the crowds. They are like the sound of a distant ocean, a blurred hum that only emphasizes the stillness of the garden. He realizes that peace is not found by changing one's location, but by changing one's soul. Everywhere, he whispers to himself, a man may live well. As the golden hour fades into the blue of twilight, the garden begins to change. The vibrant greens of the trees turn into deep, velvet blacks. The white marble of the statues begins to glow with a soft, ethereal light, as if they are soaking up the last of the day's energy. The air grows cooler, smelling now of damp earth and the evening dew that begins to settle on the rose petals. Marcus walks slowly back toward his private quarters. He moves through the palace with no need for torches yet, guided by the familiar rhythm of the halls. In his bedchamber, the windows are open to the night air. He lies down on his bed, feeling the weight of the day finally lifting. The linens are soft and smell of sun-dried lavender. He thinks of the vastness of the empire he rules, from the rainy forests of Britain to the scorching sands of Egypt, and he realizes that it is all, in the end, a small garden in the eyes of the universe. He lets his thoughts drift back to the pond. He imagines himself as the water, calm, deep, and unruffled. Even if a stone is thrown into the center, the ripples eventually fade, and the stillness returns. He feels his muscles relaxing, starting from his feet and moving up to his shoulders, until he feels as heavy and as solid as the marble statues in the hall. The stars begin to appear over Rome, the same stars he watched from the banks of the Danube. They are the silent witnesses to all of history. He watches them from his window until his eyelids grow heavy. The rhythmic drip of the fountain outside is the last thing he hears. A soft, watery heartbeat that carries him into a dreamless, stoic sleep. The city of Rome sleeps with him, a giant made of stone and history, resting under the watchful eyes of the gods. We leave the marble halls of Rome behind, letting the echoes of the empire fade into a soft, ancient memory. As we move forward in time and across the map, the air begins to change. The scent of Mediterranean pine gives way to something deeper, older, and more mysterious. We find ourselves in the heart of ancient India, approximately 500 years before the time of Marcus Aurelius. We are following the footsteps of Siddhartha Gautama, the man who would become the Buddha. But here, in this moment, he is a traveler in search of a profound and lasting quiet. Imagine the lush, tropical humidity of the Ganges plain. The air is thick and sweet, carrying the heavy perfume of crushed jasmine, damp earth, and the spice of wild ginger. It is evening, and the sky is a deep, bruised purple, transitioning into a velvet black. We find ourselves in a small grove near the banks of the Naranjara River. The sound of the water here is different from the Danube or the Loire. It is a slow, rhythmic pulse, a gentle lapping against the muddy banks that sounds like the earth itself is breathing. The trees in this grove are ancient, their roots gnarled and deep, holding the secrets of 1,000 seasons. In the center of the grove stands a magnificent peepal tree, which history will remember as the Bodhi tree. Its heart-shaped leaves are large and glossy, and even in the slightest breeze, they rustle with a sound that is soft and metallic, like thousands of tiny silk fans opening and closing at once. Siddhartha approaches the tree. His movements are fluid and slow. There is no urgency in his step, no tension in his shoulders. He smooths a small patch of earth at the base of the trunk and spreads a handful of kusha grass to sit upon. As he lowers himself into a cross-legged position, notice the grounding sensation of the earth beneath him. It is solid, cool, and supportive. He rests his hands in his lap, one palm over the other, and his body becomes as still as a mountain. Imagine the silence that settles over the grove. It is a living silence. You can hear the rhythmic crick-crick of the evening cicadas, a sound that rises and falls in waves, creating a steady, hypnotic vibration in the air. High above in the canopy, a night bird calls once. A clear, hollow note that vibrates through the stillness and then vanishes, leaving the silence even deeper than before. Siddhartha closes his eyes. He is not fighting his thoughts. He is simply watching them, like a man sitting on a riverbank watching logs float past in the current. He watches a thought of his old life, the silk robes, the golden bowls, the palace music, and he lets it float away. He watches a thought of the future, and he lets that float away too. He is anchoring himself in the present moment, in the rhythm of his own breath. Follow that breath with him. A slow, deep inhale, feeling the cool air enter the nostrils, and a slow, effortless exhale, feeling the warm air leave. In and out. The rhythm is as old as the world. With every breath, the boundaries of his body seem to soften. He is no longer a separate person. He is a part of the tree, a part of the grass, a part of the river flowing nearby. The moon rises over the grove, a giant, silver orb that casts long, liquid shadows across the ground. The light is so bright it turns the leaves of the Bodhi tree into shimmering silver coins. The temperature drops just a few degrees, a refreshing coolness that feels like a soft cloth being wiped across the forehead. The scent of the night-blooming lotus begins to drift from the river, a scent so pure and clean that it seems to clear the mind of any remaining clutter. In this deep state of meditation, time begins to stretch and dissolve. Minutes become hours, yet it feels like only a single heartbeat. Siddhartha is entering what he calls the middle way, a place of perfect balance, neither too tight nor too loose. Imagine a lute string. If it is too tight, it snaps. If it is too loose, it will not play. He is finding that perfect tension where the soul produces its most beautiful music. You can feel the tranquility radiating from him. It is a physical weight, a heavy, warm blanket of peace that wraps around everything in the grove. The animals of the forest, the small deer, the quiet owls, move closer, sensing that there is no fear here, only a vast, radiating kindness. The heartbeat of the forest slows down to match the heartbeat of the man under the tree. As the night progresses toward the dawn, the stars begin to fade, one by one. The air becomes incredibly still, that profound hush that occurs just before the first light of day. Siddhartha remains motionless. He has found the inner citadel that Marcus Aurelius would later seek. He has found the unity of the world that Leonardo painted. He realizes that everything is connected, the star, the leaf, the breath, and the stone. The first hint of gold appears on the horizon. The dew has settled on the grass, tiny diamonds of water reflecting the coming light. Siddhartha opens his eyes. He is no longer searching. He is the Buddha, the awakened one. But the peace he has found is not a loud or grand thing. It is as quiet as the morning mist. He stands up slowly, his body feeling light and effortless. He walks to the river and cups his hands, taking a drink of the cool, clear water. The sound of the water splashing back into the river is a bright, musical note that signals the beginning of a new world. He looks at his reflection in the water and smiles. A smile that holds the same secret peace as the Mona Lisa, the same stoic calm as the emperor. He begins to walk, his feet barely leaving a print on the damp earth. He is walking into a life of teaching, but his heart remains under the tree, in the silence of the night. As we watch him disappear into the morning light, we carry that silence with us. The world is waking up, but the peace of the grove remains, a small, still point in the center of the turning world. The lush, humid groves of the Ganges now fade into a crisp, cool darkness. We travel across the vast expanse of time and geography to the Baltic coast of Poland. The year is 1530. We are in a high stone tower in the city of Frombork. The air here is sharp and carries the bracing, salty tang of the Vistula lagoon. It is a quiet, intellectual cold, a stillness that demands focus and reverence. In this tower we find Nicholas Copernicus. He is a man of the church and a man of the stars. Imagine a room filled with the scent of old parchment, cold stone, and the clean, medicinal smell of beeswax. The walls are thick, built to withstand the winds that howl off the sea. But tonight, the wind is a mere whisper, a rhythmic hush against the masonry that sounds like the breath of a sleeping giant. Copernicus stands on the balcony of his observatory, wrapped in a heavy wool cloak that smells of cedar and winter. He is not looking at the earth. His gaze is fixed upward. In his world, everyone believes the earth is the center of the universe, unmoving, heavy, and stagnant. But Copernicus has a secret, a quiet revolutionary thought that he has been nurturing for decades. He believes the earth is moving. He believes we are all spinning in a grand, silent dance around the sun. Imagine the sky above the Baltic. Because there are no city lights, the stars are not distant points. They are brilliant, piercing jewels of fire. They are so bright they seem to hum with a low-frequency energy. Copernicus looks at the planet Mars, a steady, unblinking red light in the constellation of Scorpio. He doesn't see a wandering god. He sees a world on a track, moving with a mathematical precision that is both terrifying and beautiful. He moves back inside to his desk. The only light comes from a single, tall candle. The flame is long and steady, reflecting in the brass instruments that clutter the room, quadrants, armillary spheres, and astrolabes. These instruments are cold to the touch, their polished surfaces feeling like ice against the skin. Copernicus picks up his quill. The sound of the nib scratching against the thick, handmade paper is the only sound in the tower. Scritch, scritch, pause. He is calculating the orbits. As he works, he feels the rotation of the earth in his own body. He imagines the great globe of the world spinning slowly on its axis, carrying him, his tower, and the sleeping city through the void of space. This thought is not jarring. It is deeply comforting. It means we are part of a grander rhythm, a celestial clockwork that never misses a beat. You can feel that rhythm in your own pulse. Thump, thump, a steady, cosmic measurement of time. He leans back and closes his eyes, letting the geometry of the universe fill his mind. He envisions the sun as a great, golden heart in the center of the solar system, radiating heat and light that travels across millions of miles of silence to touch his cold tower. He sees the planets moving in perfect circles, circles within circles, a harmony of spheres that is too beautiful to be heard by human ears, but can be understood by the human soul. The silence of the tower is layered. There is the silence of the stone, the silence of the stars, and the silence of the man who knows a truth the rest of the world has forgotten. He feels a sense of profound humility. He is just a small observer on a small planet, yet his mind can reach out and touch the edges of the universe. He hears the distant, rhythmic tolling of the cathedral bell below. Bong, bong, bong. It is the middle of the night, the hour of the thinkers and the dreamers. The sound vibrates through the stone of the tower and into the soles of his feet. It is a reminder that while the stars move in eternity, human life moves in hours. Copernicus prepares for rest. He blows out his candle, and for a moment, the scent of the blue smoke hangs in the air, acrid and nostalgic. He moves to his small bed in the corner of the room. The wool blankets are heavy and coarse, providing a grounding weight. As he lies there, he looks through the high, narrow window. He can see a single star framed in the stone arch. He imagines the earth as a ship, sailing through a vast, dark ocean of stars. There is no friction in this movement, no noise, no resistance. It is a perfect, gliding motion. He lets his mind drift onto that ship. He feels the gentle, imaginary sway of the earth as it journeys around the sun. The cold of the room no longer feels sharp. It feels like a protective, cooling mist. His breathing slows, becoming as deep and regular as the orbits he has spent his life studying. The stars continue their silent vigil over the Baltic. The earth continues its long, slow curve around the sun. And in the Tower of Frombork, the man who moved the world finally closes his eyes, sinking into a sleep that is as vast and harmonious as the heavens themselves. The cold, celestial silence of the Baltic Tower begins to dissolve into a different kind of quiet. We travel now to the year 1835. We are no longer on solid stone. Instead, we feel the gentle, rhythmic swaying of a ship. This is the HMS Beagle, a small vessel navigating the vast, shimmering blue of the Pacific Ocean. We are following a young Charles Darwin, a man who is beginning to see the world not as a static painting, but as a living, breathing tapestry of change. Imagine the atmosphere of Darwin's cabin. It is a tiny, cramped space, but it is filled with the treasures of a quiet mind. The air smells of salt spray, old books, dried sea kelp, and the faint, earthy scent of preserved botanical specimens. You can hear the constant, rhythmic creaking of the wooden hull, creak, groan, sigh, as the ship breathes with the movement of the waves. It is a hypnotic sound, like the ticking of a grandfather clock in a house made of timber and rope. Darwin sits at a small, swinging table designed to stay level while the ship rolls. On the table is a microscope, its brass fittings gleaming softly in the light of a swinging lantern. The light moves in a slow, predictable arc, casting shadows that dance across the walls in a rhythmic sway. Darwin is looking at a finch he collected from a small volcanic island in the Galapagos. He isn't looking at the bird as a trophy. He is looking at the curve of its beak. He compares it to another finch and then another. The sound of his pencil moving across his notebook is a soft, rhythmic scratch. Scratch, scratch. He is connecting the dots between the shape of a beak and the shape of a seed. He is realizing that life is a slow, beautiful response to the world around it. The heat of the tropical afternoon begins to fade, replaced by the cool, purple shadows of a Pacific twilight. Darwin steps up onto the deck. The air is incredibly fresh, filled with the mist of the sea and the scent of distant, volcanic earth. He looks out over the water. The ocean here is a deep, indigo silk, moving in long, slow swells. There is no white foam, just the rhythmic rise and fall of the water, a giant, liquid lung. He watches a flight of boobies returning to the cliffs. Their wings move in perfect unison, a rhythmic beat against the darkening sky. Flap, flap, glide. He thinks about how long it took for those wings to become perfect for the wind. He thinks in millions of years, a scale of time so vast it makes the heart feel still. To Darwin, time is not a rush. It is a slow, steady accumulation of tiny changes, like the way the tide slowly reshapes a beach. The ship drops anchor in a sheltered bay. The sound of the heavy iron chain rattling through the hawse-hole is the last loud noise of the day. Clank, 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 until it hits the sandy bottom with a muffled thud. Then the silence of the islands rushes in. It is a silence filled with the sound of the surf breaking on distant lava rocks. A constant, low-frequency roar that becomes a background hum, as soothing as a mother's ch-ch-ch. Darwin leans against the railing. He watches the giant tortoises on the shore, moving with a slow, ancient dignity. They are the keepers of time. He realizes that every living thing, the tortoises, the finches, the coral beneath the ship, and even himself, is linked in a single, unbroken chain of life. This thought brings a profound sense of belonging. He is not an observer outside of nature. He is a part of the slow, rhythmic pulse of the earth. He returns to his hammock. Imagine the feeling of being suspended in a cocoon of canvas. As the ship rocks gently in the calm bay, the hammock sways in a counter-rhythm. It is the most perfect way to sleep, cradled by the ocean itself. He listens to the water lapping against the side of the ship. Slap, gurgle, hush. He closes his eyes and imagines the world as a great tree of life. He sees the branches spreading out, growing slowly, leaves unfurling in the sun, roots reaching deep into the dark, cool earth. He feels his own breath slowing down to match the sway of the beagle. The worries of the voyage, the long years away from home, and the weight of his discoveries all melt away into the rhythmic motion of the sea. The stars above the Pacific are different from the ones Copernicus saw. They are warmer, closer, and reflected in the dark water around the ship. Darwin lets his mind drift on the current of his thoughts, moving slowly toward a deep, evolutionary sleep. The ship, the islands, and the vast, living ocean all breathe together in the dark. The swaying motion of the HMS Beagle and the salt-crusted air of the Pacific now settle into a profound, concentrated stillness. We travel to the year 1902, to a small, drafty shed in the heart of Paris. The air here is no longer tropical. It is cool and carries the faint, sharp scent of ozone, damp wood, and the metallic tang of chemical salts. This is the world of Marie Curie. Imagine the shed on the Rue Lamond. It was once a medical school dissecting room, cold, poorly insulated, and simple. But tonight, it is a cathedral of science. You can hear the rhythmic, soft clinking of glass-stirring rods against beakers. It is a fragile musical sound that repeats with a steady, hypnotic pace. Marie moves through the shadows of the laboratory with a focused, quiet grace. Her hands are stained with the work of years, yet they move with the precision of a master musician. The primary sound in this room is the boiling of the cauldrons. For years, Marie and her husband Pierre have been refining tons of pitchblende, a dark, heavy ore. Imagine the sound of the bubbling liquid, a low, rhythmic glub, glub, simmer, that fills the space like a liquid heartbeat. It is the sound of patience. It is the sound of thousands of hours of labor being distilled into a few precious grains of matter. As the Parisian night deepens, the city outside falls silent. The clatter of horse-drawn carriages on the cobblestones fades away, leaving Marie alone with her elements. She turns off the gas lamps. The room should be pitch black, but it is not. Marie sits on a wooden stool and looks toward the shelves where her small glass vials are kept. In the darkness, the vials begin to glow. It is a soft, ethereal blue light, a color that does not seem to belong to this world. It is the light of radium. It doesn't flicker like a candle. It is a steady, pulsating glow that illuminates the room with a pale, ghostly beauty. Imagine the sensation of watching this light. It is mesmerizing and calming, like looking at a distant nebula or the phosphorescence of the sea. Marie calls them her glowworms. As you watch the blue light in your mind, you feel a sense of wonder. This light has been trapped in the earth for billions of years, and now, through her quiet persistence, it has been set free. The air in the lab is still and cool, but the blue glow feels like a warm presence. Marie rests her chin on her hand, her eyes reflecting the azure light. She is thinking about the interior of the atom, the vast, empty spaces, and the tiny, vibrating particles of energy. She realizes that even in what looks like solid matter, there is a rhythmic dance of light and power. Everything, at its most basic level, is vibrating in a silent, beautiful harmony. She picks up a notebook, her pen moving in a slow, rhythmic swish across the paper. She is recording the measurements of the glow, but her mind is drifting into the philosophy of the elements. She feels a deep, quiet connection to the universe. Just as Copernicus found peace in the movement of the planets, Marie finds it in the heartbeat of the atom. The cold of the Paris night begins to seep through the walls of the shed, but Marie is wrapped in a heavy shawl that smells of old wool and wood smoke. She feels the weight of her own exhaustion, a good tiredness that comes from a life lived with purpose. She listens to the rain begin to fall on the corrugated iron roof, a rhythmic patter, tap, patter, that creates a private, sheltered world inside the lab. She decides it is time for rest. She doesn't hide the glowing vials. She leaves them there, their blue light acting as a night light for the laboratory. She walks slowly back to her small apartment nearby. The rhythm of her footsteps on the damp pavement is a steady, grounding beat. As she lies in her bed, she can still see the blue glow behind her closed eyelids. It is a pulse of pure energy, a steady and eternal light. She lets her breathing match that pulse. In and out, the atom, the star, the heart, they all move to the same rhythm. She sinks into a deep, luminous sleep, her mind drifting through a universe made of light and shadow, where every mystery is just a quiet thought away from being understood. We leave the blue, radioactive glow of the Paris laboratory behind, traveling back across the Atlantic to a small, wooden cabin in the woods of Massachusetts. The year is 1845. We are at Walden Pond with Henry David Thoreau. This is our final destination, a place where all the rhythms of the previous lives, the stars, the atoms, the rivers, and the gardens, come together in one final, perfect silence. Imagine the air at Walden. It is autumn, and the atmosphere is crisp, smelling of fallen oak leaves, dry pine needles, and the cold, clean scent of deep water. The sun has just set, leaving a sliver of orange on the horizon that reflects in the pond like a dying ember. Thoreau sits on his doorstep. His cabin is small, no larger than a tiny room, built with his own hands. You can hear the rhythmic lap, lap, lap of the water against the shore, just a few yards away. It is a slow, patient sound, the pulse of a world that is in no hurry to go anywhere. A loon calls from the middle of the pond, a long, haunting, rhythmic cry that echoes off the trees and then settles into the stillness. He is not thinking about fame or money or the noise of the city. He is thinking about the simplicity of being alive. He watches the shadows of the pines stretch across the ground, moving so slowly you cannot see them move, yet they cover the earth like a dark, soft blanket. He realizes that to be at peace is to move at the pace of nature. Time, he says to himself, is but the stream I go a-fishing in. The night arrives, and with it, a profound, velvet darkness. Thoreau moves inside and lights a small lamp. The cabin is filled with the scent of wood smoke and the dry, sweet smell of the corn he harvested. He listens to the wind as it moves through the treetops. A deep, rhythmic shhhhh that sounds like the ocean we felt with Darwin, or the mists we felt with Marcus Aurelius. He lies down on his simple bed. He feels the solidity of the earth beneath the floorboards. He thinks of all the figures we have visited. Napoleon on his island, Leonardo in his studio, Buddha under his tree, and Marie Curie in her lab. He realizes that they all sought this same moment, the moment where the heart is quiet enough to hear the universe. The lamp flickers out. The cabin is now lit only by the stars reflecting off the surface of the pond. Thoreau lets his breath go, in and out. Each breath is a ripple on the water. Each thought is a leaf falling in the forest. He feels himself dissolving into the woods, into the water, and into the night sky. The story of history is not a story of loud battles or grand speeches. It is a story of quiet moments, of people sitting in the dark, looking at the same stars and feeling the same peace. As the silence of Walden Pond wraps around you, you realize that you are a part of that history too. The rhythm of your breath is the rhythm of the world. The pond is still. The woods are dark. The stars are bright. Sleep now in the company of the dreamers and the thinkers. The journey is over, and the rest is silence.